I am.
Good morning. This is Mykel. Happy Monday. Welcome to Monday Morning Gasoline. I have my friend and DevOps coach and consultant, Mykel Alvis. How are you doing, Mykel?
I'm well. How are you, Mykel?
I'm doing fantastic, except for that sinking feeling I mentioned earlier, but I'm sure it'll pass shortly.
Cool.
So, thanks for joining me early this morning.
Thanks for having me.
You know, I know only a few people that are crazy enough to go on video this early, so thank you for that.
I mean, I'm usually up way before this. I slept in this morning, so I got up at 5.
Excellent. Wow, that's... I got up at about 6. Really, I got out of bed at 6:05, I'll be honest. But it's all good. I had enough time to drink a energy drink, which will be unnamed until they start sponsoring me.
Right on.
So, how you been?
I'm doing well. Everything's going along pretty well, all things considered. It's, I think it's a little trite now to talk about how crappy 2020 was for everybody. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. I think this last year, like the last 2 years have been kind of a big struggle for me. I started a business 2 years ago and found out that I hate being in business for myself. I really hate it. I don't mind the work. The work is nice. The money is kind of secondary to that. But the being in business, running a business, doing sales, like kind of the hustle part of that, that's just never been my thing. I'm much more interested in the execution and that sort of stuff. And I don't think I just don't think there's a good place for me in self-employment, to be honest with you. I'm not cut out for it. And
I can definitely identify with that. I ran a business for a month and a half and did not get paid for my only client and decided to get an oil and gas job. So
yeah, well, I mean, I did it for 2 years, right? And for a year of that, I basically made $0. And that was just not okay for the way that I was, my partner and I, we don't have piles of cash lying around. So, I burned very deeply into my savings. I burned very deeply into everything. I mean, and then so middle of last year, I took a security officer position with a startup, and we're in the healthcare space. So security is, it's interesting. A lot of the work is around certifications. We're in the middle of a thing called high trust certification, which is an extremely expensive and, in my opinion, highly overrated certification. It's a little bit like ISO 9000. If you work for one of the big consulting firms, ISO works out pretty well for you because you just rake in cash from your clients, and your clients are like, "Oh, we're ISO 9000 certified." I'm like, great. It's a little bit the same thing for high trust certifications. It's just the table stakes for playing in the game a lot of the time. And so it's a pay for play kind of arrangement. You
like
pay
a checkbox, right? It's a checkbox.
Yeah. It's like a $250,000 checkbox.
Wow, that's an expensive checkbox.
Well, I mean, ISO's a multi-year process. It takes way more than that.
Is that like ISO 27001?
ISO 9000? The ISO 9000 is just one of those process and procedure kind of things. If you've never been involved in an ISO 9000 action, then congratulations.
27001. That's the only one, right?
I don't know. I don't know what it is now. It used to be ISO 9000 2002 or something like that. I think the one we were in. It's based on the year, right? So it's ISO 9000 dash some year. And it's whatever year it is you're under. In any case, ISO 9000 it's just an audit that you go through that says I did all these things that I claimed I do. And high trust is very much the same thing.
So I've been through PCI, and I've been
it's
through
just like
SOC
that
2, and I've been through the ISO 27001 and 2700.
Those are all the same, right? Like all these things are mechanisms for consulting and auditing firms to bleed cash out of.
So I'm going to call you out on that. So I don't think it's all that. So
Okay.
let me disagree with you because I think what the experience I had dealing with both the SOC 2 and the ISO audit was
Hmm.
that we found vulnerabilities that we
Yeah.
actually had to shore up. And without that certification, we might not have been as keen to address those vulnerabilities. So yeah, it
Right.
is like an entry into the game, but
Hmm.
I mean, I think it does set a bare minimum, like environmental separation in the ISO 27001. I can't tell
Sure.
you how many people don't think that's necessary. Like,
I can't
they're
argue with that. That's not what I'm saying.
so
I'm not saying that it has no value. We are using it as a tool because we're a startup. We're just using it as a tool to build our security framework, right? We're basically just saying if we don't have this P&P here, policy and procedure, we're going to use the one from HITrust. We're going to use what HITrust demands. Like we're building out our security structure. My, this isn't one of those. This is kind of one of those things where it's like, hey, dude, do the work, right? I mean, if you need an audit to get you to do the work, you have a different problem. Now, using the audit as a mechanism, as a lever against people who don't really want to do the work, sure, okay, knock
or
yourself
who
out.
don't understand the work needs to be done,
Yeah,
or don't
sure,
understand the
right,
seriousness of the work. Because I mean,
right.
that's
They don't take
how.
the thing seriously. That part is absolutely the case. I do not think HITrust as a certification itself, or that a SOC audit is useless itself. I think that the mechanisms by which these things are done are they're cash grabs. And I don't dislike the cash grab. I was a consultant for a super long time, dude. It was like it was all kinds of cash grab. But in the end, you could get that level of performance just by reading documentation and executing on the situation. You do not need an audit to do that. Some people need a personal trainer in order to go to the gym. That's a thing, right? They can't go without somebody kind of holding a metaphorical gun to their head. I get that, but that is,
Well,
let me restate that. It's not that they can't; they won't. This isn't one. This isn't a can't versus. This is a can't versus won't problem, right? Anybody can have a good security program. Anybody can have good security program. They just generally don't because they're, what's the word I'm looking for? Lazy. And laziness can't be combated by peer pressure. It's almost impossible. So you need one of these external forces. You need some form of external force, and
yeah,
hopefully that's not a regulatory industry watchdog coming after you.
yeah, I mean, proactivity is important, and I mean, so it's sometimes it's forcing your vendors to follow a standard, right? It's
Absolutely.
not always someone you can control, and it's but you can control your money, right? And you can require certain certifications. Look, I will
Sure.
take issue with the argument that it can only be lazy. Absolutely, laziness plays a huge amount and huge factor in this, but there is it's at which level, right? Is it laziness?
Yeah.
Is it not thinking ahead? And then who is really responsible? In a large corporation, it can be like a combination of laziness and other things that distraction,
Yeah.
priorities that all cause this. But in the end, like even though HITrust is super expensive, even though that you know part of it depends on the policies you set in place, right? Like it's about following your policies that you have in place. So if you
Mm-hmm.
don't set the proper policies, or if your policies are hogwash, the HITrust is supposed to detect that, right? It's supposed to
Yes.
find that, hey, oh, we don't have proper policies for change control. Hey, so let's put some in. We don't have a proper policy
Agreed.
for, yeah. So it I mean, I get that it's a cash grab, but what is a better option? So what would you?
Oh, I don't know. I think like that. Don't pretend that I have an answer to that, right? I am. I'm going to be involved in this for the next year of my life. I'm burning 12 months of my entire existence for this particular problem, and stacked on top of two other full-time jobs that I'm not being paid for. So ultimately, I mean, like when I say that, I mean I have three roles at this company now. And so when I look at this, I go, okay, you're right. I absolutely need these things. I need this security framework in place. I'm not an idiot. I know how to put that security framework in place. It's going to take about a year. It'd take me a year without HITrust. And at the end, I wouldn't be audited and I wouldn't have a HITrust certification. Our customers demand this thing, right? But it's really kind of, I'm told that's all I can say because I'm not a salesperson and I don't want to be. But as I said earlier, But I'm told that it's a requirement, but it's a kind of one of those. Are you hydro certified? You're not. Maybe we don't talk to you. I mean, I don't think our customers have. I don't think they have a lot of faith in it. I just don't. I think that they do it because I think it's the other version of lazy, where they're not really they're just using it as a bar for entry, and I'm okay with that.
Hey,
That part
it's a
totally
risk,
cool.
right? It's
Yep,
a risk reducer on their part, whether it's legal risk or
absolutely.
oh yes, we force we make our vendors take this
Yep,
certification so that
yep.
so let me be a sales guy for you.
Okay.
Feedback loops. Do you get any money when this thing is published? Tell me you get some money
No,
when this thing's published. No.
no,
Okay.
no.
Well then. But anyway, let me sell this book that you don't get any money for. Feedback loops. So this was really cool. You guys, you were one of the speakers at All Day DevOps last year,
Yep,
and this one of the chapters here, I think number 6, chapter 16 is yours.
something like that. Yeah. I don't have a copy in
So
here, but
it is 16. Excellent. Yeah.
wow,
So
you're good.
yeah. It's like I've done this before.
Right, you've done
The
this.
book.
Like
Yeah.
prep this.
I did. I took. So thank you for sending me a copy of it when I joined your Ask Me Anything session.
Yeah,
So I did not pay for this. Full disclosure. Uh,
we
but
gave away a
what it
lot
was
of copies of that. A lot of
you
copies.
can. Well, you can. So if anybody wants this, they can get it from Mykel, or they can buy it on Amazon. I believe
Yeah,
it's still out there.
yeah,
And
it's still out there. I
so
think you can get
yeah.
it from All Day DevOps too. I think you can like just ask, like call and ask or anything. And there's a PDF version that's what most people get. I got the physical copy so that my mom could have a copy of it. I think we have a copy here, but I
So
definitely gave it to my mom just because it makes her feel good.
So what I found really interesting is how it takes lessons from the speakers. Well, first, All Day DevOps is a 24-hour DevOps conference. I'm looking
Hmm.
forward to this year's. It's a virtual conference. It was incepted that way, right?
Yep.
And was meant to go around the sun, with which is pretty cool. I always
Hmm.
like support that goes around the sun as well as
Hmm.
you know
Hmm.
24-hour marathons. But it took the ideas that you guys presented at the conference and put them into a book. And
Yeah,
is
there's
there?
actually several editions of this now too. There's another one. There's a
I saw
second
volume
feedback
two. Yeah.
loops. Yeah. The people there, I'm not gonna blow my own horn. I think the people that spoke there are typically a little more, um, what's the word to say? They're definitely nicer than me. I'm not. That's not
That's a
my
pretty low
thing.
bar. That's a
Yeah,
pretty
it's a
low
pretty
bar,
low
sir.
bar. It's a low bar. I agree with that. There's no question. I don't. I don't think I don't think that anybody there has a. I don't think anybody there has like a much better presentation than anybody else is there. Like the bar is pretty high for the people in All Day DevOps. I have not seen. I've spoken at it for the last 5 years, and it's been for 5 years now, and I have not seen all of the talks because there's like a jillion of them, right? I mean, that's like days of your life, literally five, and actually 15 because there's 3 tracks usually. And but the thing that I would say is that the practitioners that present there are very they tend to be very wide in the ways that they approach problems. Like several years ago, I presented on a topic. I'm not going to go into the details of this, but I presented on a topic, and somebody literally presented the antithesis of my topic like an hour or two later. And
That's
that's
pretty
fine.
funny.
Like that's actually well. I mean, this is that book should, if you read that book cover to cover, you realize this is all. Most of this is opinion, right? A lot of this is opinion, and some of the things that we have trouble with as people is distinguishing between things that we know versus things that we think versus things we don't know. That the epistemological certainty is really hard to obtain, right?
I think
You
that's very
don't
true in
know much
DevOps.
of anything.
So I think it's very true in DevOps, and I think
Hmm.
the reason for that is because there are so many choices, right? Because
Hmm.
in DevOps there are multiple right answers. There are a lot more wrong answers, and it's a lot easier to pick. Like if you're if you're randomly guessing, like trying to pin the tail on the donkey, it's a lot easier to pin the tail on the wrong solution than it is on the right solution. But that doesn't mean there's a one way of doing things. There's a way of doing things that is pretty, maybe closer to black and white than,
Yeah. I think so.
The actual tool, but so things like high trust exist to validate the method, or things like what's that architecture method? One of my teammates from Britain shared it with me. It's like a way of doing enterprise architecture.
Let's. Gosh, I was actually talking to somebody about this last week. I'm sorry. Drawing a complete blank.
Okay. Anyway, so
I know there is a. So yeah. Okay. So here's the thing, right? The principle is typically simple. If you talk about the principle of a thing, right? If you say, "Don't murder people," okay, don't murder people. That's a pretty. Okay, are you? Because are you good with that, or are you good with it most of the time? Right, there are people most of the time, right? Yep. There's a gray, right? Like we societally, people are murdered by state-sanctioned murder all over the world all the time. Turns out America does a lot of that. But anyway, that's not really I'm not gonna stand on any post for that. What I'm saying is that most people, if you came up here and said, "Is murder okay?" They go, "No, it's never okay. Murder is never okay." And you're like, "Well, that's state-sanctioned murder." And they go, "What's that?" And I said, "That's like when you execute a criminal. Or when you go to war or when you drone strike a village of people to kill one dude. You don't think that's murder? No, that's war." I'm like, you just mentioned words now. And I'm not trying to get into it. I'm definitely not getting into an anti-war situation here. What I'm saying is that the principles of most things are actually pretty simple for people. It's the execution that gets real questionable, right? We're in this. So I'm in this Slack channel and listen to this podcast, and they were talking about blameless postmortems, which I'm kind of a big fan of. I believe blame is one of the most overrated behaviors that people ever do. Like being able to blame somebody. And they got all weird about it, right? The people in the podcast like, "I don't think this is a thing. You don't think people can be blameless?" And I'm like, I think what it is that you don't understand the principle. You just took the words and applied them, right? You're like, blameless postmortem. That means there are no blame. It's like, no, somebody did it, dude. The question is, it's not a question of whether they did it or not. It's whether or not you're going to allow them to make mistakes like people do. And so the principle is that. Right. It's whether you're going to be a dick about it, right? Are you going to be a dick about this? Right? Is that what you're going to do? You're just going to be a dick about it? You're just going to make it so that I try to hide my mistakes. If that's what happens, if that's the way we work, people don't work under those circumstances very well. Right? No, the principle is easy. Execution is super hard because, I've had a CTO pound on my desk. Who did this? I'm going to fire that person. I'm like, it's me. I mean, for practical purposes, just go ahead and say it's me. Well, it wasn't you, was it? And I'm like, no, it wasn't, but I'm not going to tell you who it was. So go ahead and fire me. If you're going to be a dick, go ahead and fire me. Right? Fine. I'll get motivated.
A month or two ago, it says, "Don't be a dick." Or
don't be a dick, man. Right? I mean, like it's
difficult. It's a lot more difficult.
It's really hard.
And there are times that you don't think you're being that way, but then if you look back at it. So I've taken to reviewing my daily activities at the end of the day. So so this last book I read, or I listened to, I don't really read, I just listen to audiobooks. But I listened to The Compound Effect, and it's talking about small incremental changes and how they can set a great leap in direction, a great change in direction in your life over time, as long as applied consistently. And consistency is like the hardest thing for me, man. Even doing this thing in a row for 5 weeks without. I'm
very impressed with your consistency on this, man. I really am. Congratulations.
Well, so that brings me to my next point. So I have a couple weeks where I don't have guests. So if anybody wants to come talk to me, Monday morning, 6:30, send me a note. Send a carrier pigeon, something like that.
You should.
But
you're right, though. Consistency is super hard. It's super hard, right? That's back to my going to the gym thing. Sometimes people need somebody there waiting on them, tapping their foot to make this happen. That's just It's a form of mental laziness. Not being consistent is a form of mental laziness, but it's very human. Like when I say that, I don't mean like, oh, I'm awesome at it and y'all suck. I mean
It's
like
habit.
we all have this problem.
Mental laziness is habit, dude. So
It's habit, right?
You build a habit, and habits, they take extra energy to change. Once something is ingrained, that path is smooth. You keep walking down the same path just out of habit.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it takes a conscious reevaluation, a mindfulness to examine what you're doing, really in regards to everything. Like,
Pretty much everything, man. Like this is I'm very fond of the book Extreme Ownership. Not necessarily a huge
yep.
fan of Jocko Willink, but I mean like the idea that you accept responsibility for your own life. Like if your life sucks, I like, okay, get it. You know, middle class white guy born on third base. That's a thing, right? Like if you don't agree that that's a thing, that's fine. I don't really care. But if you have,
sure what thing that is, I don't really know. What
yeah,
that meant.
Right. I don't know what thing it is. It is a thing, but I don't know what kind of thing it is, right? But under the circumstances, if you need help and you don't ask for help, or if you need help and you don't ask for help, or you ask for help but people don't give it to you, you got to keep asking. This is not a. That's not a. Hey, you're sorry, dude. You're born on first base, or you're born at home plate, and you're having to run to first base. That is awful, and that's not. Equity is hard in the world, but ultimately, taking responsibility for the situation you're in and trying to improve it is what most people are trying to do every day. Like you might not agree with their methods or what they're doing or anything. Most people are trying to get better every day. They may not be good at it. They may be doing it in a way that is socially unacceptable or somehow is, awful or whatever. People might judge them differently. But owning your own process is kind of what DevOps really is about. A little bit is owning it enough to say, hey man, we're in a team here. Like this is a team effort. And if we're not going to behave like we're on a team, if we're not going to own it all together, then what am I? Am I the pack mule? Is that what it is? You just going to load it all on me and I'm going to walk down the road with it? Is that it? Being able to look at your situation, whatever it is, like we had no security profile. All the time, like, oh crap, we got nothing. I showed up and there was nothing, literally nothing. No policies, no procedures, no. We had an idea, but we didn't have anything. And same sort of deal. You wake up one day and you're like, my dad was really, he's like, if you don't have a job, your job is finding a job. If you are, if you have a disadvantage of some sort, then you need some mechanism to overcome that disadvantage. If that disadvantage is mental laziness, if that disadvantage is being poor or being rich, which can be a kind of really unpleasant disadvantage from what I'm told. I would never know, honestly.
Wait, which one?
I'm sure you know, right? But I don't. I have no idea. I mean, frankly, it's what it looks to me like is it turns you kind of into an asshole. But ultimately, the thing that I think we could say here is that you have to look at the situation you work at every day, what you're trying to accomplish, and move forward with that as if you were trying to get better, right? Am I trying to get better every day? And if I'm not, did I just take a day off from getting better, or do I just not give a shit anymore? And
sometimes
that might be a thing. What's that?
Sometimes I take a day off from.
Sometimes I take weeks off, dude. Sometimes I take weeks off. I did not gain 65 pounds across the last 5 years by being, super on top of my game, right? Life is hard. Your whole life is a work in progress right up to the end, man. And so being able to say stuff like we were talking the other day, you and I were talking the other day about vaccinations. Like, hey, dipshit, go get vaccinated. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Don't be an idiot. Oh, well, what if they put the 5G in me or some other crap like that? Stop being a dumbass, dude. Go read something that doesn't agree with what you say then. Go find out some actual data.
But talking like that is not going to convince anyone, right?
Hey, you're right. I'm not trying to. That's the thing. I'm not trying to convince anybody. I stopped that this year. Here in the last couple of minutes, I would like to say something. I'm not trying to make anybody better anymore. I spent 35 years of my life trying to make people be better at what they do. And people don't want to be better in a way that other people want them to be. They want to find their own version of better. And sometimes their own version of better is negative better, which is like what we usually call worse. But that's okay. I have had to understand my limits. I've had to recognize.
Coaching then? Like, what do you think about coaching where it tries to redirect the person to discover their own limits? Whereas, very different than telling someone, helping them by guiding them towards a better path.
Okay, so you can't be forced to be coached. If you're forced to be coached, you're not being coached. You're actually being dictated to. If you go choose to get a coach, you can listen to that advice, but that person has no power over you. All the choices are yours, right? I don't believe in people giving up agency. Britney Spears notwithstanding. I don't believe people giving up agency for themselves. I'm like, if you let somebody dictate your life, you've given away the only real thing you have, which is kind of a mental freedom. And
people do that all the time. Look at
they sure do.
They
sure do.
Facebook. Depending on which vice you want to consider or which virtue, right? It's about giving yourself. The whole entire 12-step program is about giving yourself up and acknowledging that you have no power. Because, maybe some people, maybe that's
maybe some people,
right?
Maybe some people need that, right? I won't say I have sympathy. What I have is I'm like, oh, well, your requirements are different from mine, right? It's I've spent, I'm in my mid-50s now. I've been in software for 44 years. And I've had a lot of people tell me across the course of my life, because of the decisions I've made and the things I've done, how I'm not an adult. I don't have kids. I'm not married and I don't have kids, so I'm not an adult. I haven't checked out.
That is not why you're not an adult, sir. I can
hang on.
That.
So here's the thing. I consider myself to be more of an adult than most of the people who tell me I'm not an adult, because what I do is I accept responsibility for my situation. I didn't get myself into some pattern and say, hey, here's the pattern. Oh shit, the pattern didn't work out for me. Oh no, the pattern didn't work out for me. Oh, everybody said it would. It's like, well, don't be a little bitch. You're gonna cry. What are you gonna cry? Because shit didn't go because everything went sideways. Well, that's how life works, man. The universe is full of chaos. Don't be a little crybaby. Move on.
Hey, Mike, the title of this show is Monday Morning Gasoline. We got 2 minutes left. Do you have anything positive? I need less cynicism this morning.
No, this is not a cynicism, dude. This is actually, here's the thing. This is the positive thing. Everybody in the world owns their own life. There is nothing more positive than being able to say to other people, I'm in the situation I'm in, but that's not me. I'm getting out of it, or I'm going to do something. I'm doing something with my life. Even if it's something that they don't agree with. Other people, the law is questionable on this, but other people don't generally get to tell you how to live your life. Being able to look at your existence, move forward, and say, hey, I own my life. I am in charge of this. I am doing the best I can. If you don't like it, why don't you kiss my ass?
Well, all good until that best I can is driving drunk, at 100 miles an hour into a car full of kids.
If that's the best you can do, if that's literally the best you can do, then I'm really sorry for your best. I am, but I'm not in charge of you. And we have a societal construct that takes care of that for us. We do, and I'm deeply involved in being in part of that as best I can. But if that's the best you can do, which it isn't, not for anybody. That's not the best anybody can do. That's just a thing people can do. But if what happens is, under those circumstances, well, maybe we don't do a blameless postmortem under those circumstances. Maybe we just do a postmortem. And that, it's unfortunate, but it is reality. And you are not in charge of other people. We give up a little bit of power every day, but most of it still belongs to you. You still get to make decisions and you still get to act. And if you just don't act like an asshole all the time, not you, I don't know if you can.
Not
But
always. I mean,
not always, right? But if you just don't act like an asshole all the time, then your life at the very least is likely to incrementally get better, as you said, right? All social change is incremental. Big leaps in social change are generally very devastating. Incremental changes, those actually add up and they work. Like, and it's the same thing for your everyday life. Incremental changes are the key to success. Taking ownership of your own life and looking at it and going, I want a better job. Okay, what does that mean to you? Like, one that I make more money. Why is that better? Why is making more money better? Well, I want a bigger TV. It's like, so what? Why do you want a bigger TV? You have to examine your reasons for the things you want as much as you have to examine your actions.
All right, Mykel, I got you off there. I think that's a good place to end it. Man, I could talk about this stuff all day, but I don't. But we got to get our day started. And
Roger that.
Thank you very much for joining me today. This is probably the most fun, crazy episode we've done so far. Now this is only the 6th, so we got time.
Hey, I'm sure that there are far crazier people in the world than me. Hopefully, you don't have to directly interact with.
No, so my friend Jay Lamb, he'll probably come on. He does a radio show and produces his own marketing, his own videos, so he does a lot of stuff. So
cool.
We probably talk about some digital production with him or my friend Tyler. They're pretty out there, but they're great dudes. Well, Mykel, have an awesome week. Everyone watching, have an awesome week too.
Have an awesome week, folks.
See y'all soon.